Um, my name is Joshua Yospyn, and I am a web designer, have been for 20 years, but I also was a freelance photographer for over 10 years. And I've just gone back and forth between these two trades. And I'm more of a front-end person than a developer, although I do a little bit of both. And I work for a company called JSI, which is very much into public health, everything from post-Ebola reconstruction in West Africa to the opioid crisis in the United States. And so one of the things we do is build a lot of websites, pretty much in Drupal 8, to service these projects. And my job particularly, I work a lot in Adobe XD, just kind of whipping up comps to show our clients. And then I also use Bootstrap 4, the Barrio base for that. And so I do a lot of CSS, a lot of Twig work, and installing Drupal and customizing themes. So the goal of this particular presentation and what I accomplished was we have a staff member who doesn't know anything about HTML. They don't have any coding ability, very little, but they need to create HTML newsletters automatically with as little work as possible and as little HTML knowledge as possible. So I put the link in the chat, but this particular website is called USAID Advancing Nutrition. And the website is a global project in many, many countries where we're sort of consulting on nutrition in developing countries and various aspects of it. So what this web page is that you see is an extremely long roundup of article summaries. So these are little summaries and links out to journal articles, issue briefs, white papers, things like that. So this is a very, very long web page, but it's pretty consistent. And we needed to turn this into something that can be emailed out. So this particular page you're looking at, this is a view that's sort of complex. And the goal was to automatically turn it into code that could be copy and pasted over into Constant Contact. And unfortunately, some of you may disagree, and there may be other ways of doing it, but HTML e-newsletters still require inline styles. A lot of email programs still require table-based coding. It's very 1995 versus this is 2020, Drupal 8.8.4, Drupal 9 now. Very different worlds. And for the e-newsletter version, we simplified it a little bit. So when I'm working in views, the first thing I looked at was, well, can I just put inline styles in the view when I rewrite a field? And so I tried. For the title field, for citation fields, I tried rewriting the field like this with inline style tag and these attributes. And it just doesn't show up. You can type it on in here and code it, but Drupal is just gonna delete it and it won't show up on your webpage. Luckily, I created a template in Constant Contact to kind of simplify this a little bit. So the only pieces of content that need to change are the things between the headers. So it's the title of the resource and then the citation. And the title is a link out that actually goes back to the website version of the e-newsletter. So what I've been using a lot of is Twig. And I figure some of you have experience in this, some of you do not. If you do not, it's a little bit like Dreamweaver DWT. It's like templates that are used for various different things and pages throughout the websites. So everything from an entire page itself to just one field that shows up in a page. There are a lot of twigs that are in the theme. So the way that you kind of know what Twig you're supposed to be working in is in the site's default folder, there'll be a YAML file. And you copy it, save it here as services.yaml, and then down here in the bottom, you're going to turn debug to true, which is in the red circle here. And what that gives you is green stuff. So when you go into the code inspector, you're going to see this green hints, and it's sort of like a roadmap for what's going on in your code. And it shows you what Twig is being used. And often it provides suggestions of how you're supposed to rename and customize the Twig. So here you see in green that we are using a core Twig that's located in a module folder for fields. And all that field is the title. So in the green stuff, you often see this. Here we're looking at a block. It's a bootstrap block region. And if we wanted to create our own custom Twig, we would open up that original one, but then save it in our own custom theme folder. Don't overwrite the existing one. Save it as a new one in your own custom theme folder. And so you have a couple of file name suggestions here, and I usually go for the most specific one to whatever we're working on. So sometimes they don't provide suggestions. Sometimes you do not see these file name suggestions, and you got to improvise. And so, for example, I rename views view field.html.twig without any suggestions being provided. And so what I did first is in blue, you see that's my custom theme folder. I saved it there, and then I renamed it. It's using the same stuff that's in gray there. So it's still called views-view-field. But then the next three words are the machine name of the view with hyphens instead of underscores. So when you edit your view in Drupal, you'll see that machine name, and you just use hyphens instead. So that's the name of the view. Block 1 is the display of that view that I'm using. And then title is the machine name of the field. And so this is typically how a Twig gets renamed. And so all this Twig is for that particular title field. That's all this is for. And then after you save that new Twig, you get a clear cache for you to see it and for it to work. And so when we look in the Twig file, you don't see a whole lot. All you see is this stuff in curly brackets. Often, you see something like this, it just says curly brackets output hyphen. And so what I had to do was rewrite that entire thing with a P tag with Inline Styles, an A tag with Inline Styles. But then I also have a new field that I'm grabbing here, curly brackets row.nid, the node ID. And that's just a number that is unique to every piece of content. And the reason I'm using that here is because it provides a unique anchor link back to the website for every piece of content. And then the row._entity.label in the red curly brackets here, that is the title being rewritten as text only. And by the way, this presentation is on the page on the MidCamp website. So if you want to go back and look at this, it'll be there. And notice this special character code at the end of that too, just inside the strong tag. So another example, the citation field, which needed to be smaller and light gray, I wrapped it in a span. I put the margin in there. I defined the color, the font size, all these inline styles that, again, are 20th century, but you got to do for an HTML newsletter. So this is kind of a screenshot of what that looks like in the page. And you see those inline styles being outputted by the Twig in the code. Now, a different example is the container of all these fields. The normal Twig contains curly brackets title, curly brackets content. Pretty simple stuff. That's all that's in there, really. And by the way, I have a cat. You're going to hear him. So what I did is I surrounded the title and put it in a TD inside a table. And then the content, I surrounded into a grouping div. So I'm using tables and divs for this HTML newsletter. And so this is how that looks in the code. And you see the name of that Twig with the red underline and where I saved it in my custom theme folder. So this is kind of the top parent Twig. And then I have another Twig below that that is for each row of content. And again, that's saved in my custom theme folder. And that has also been rewritten to include custom inline styles. So when our e-news person uses Chrome Code Inspector to grab it, I just kind of had to tell them what they're supposed to grab and what div. And so they right-click in Inspector and just copy that element. And then in Constant Contact, this is my template that I created for them. I put these brackets here to show them where to paste it in. And so they do this a couple of times for each topic that's in the e-newsletter. So it ends up looking like this, in Constant Contact, in your email. But the only problem here is special characters. So the end of every one of those titles is supposed to have a right arrow. And then we also have the problem of curly apostrophe created some weirdness for the third title there. So we have to go in to Constant Contact and fix that stuff. And I spent a lot of time trying to make Twig or a view output the encoding of a special character, and it just won't. I can't figure it out. If anybody knows and has done that successfully, I would love to hear about it. So in this case, I put the encoding into the Twig and hoped that it would output that in very many different ways, but it still just outputs the arrow. And you can't just paste that arrow into Constant Contact and blast it out, because when people open up their emails, it's going to look really weird. That special character is not going to show up. So they each have to be fixed. And the typical ones that have to be fixed are like that right-leaning arrow that I have. Curly apostrophes or curly quotation marks, and then N dashes and M dashes are often culprits as well. So you got to fix those. And I've been doing this for 20 years for every HTML newsletter. It's like nothing's changed. And so in the website version of the e-newsletter, we had to create a destination for those anchor links that I created. So in the view itself, and if you look in the code here that's circled in red, you'll see that I wrapped the title in a span with an ID. And so it's resource 446. That 446 is the node ID. And that node ID is unique for every piece of content. So we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these summaries that are part of this e-newsletter. And so in the view in Drupal, this is kind of what that looks like. I'm wrapping it in a p tag in the style settings, and then I rewrite the results by wrapping it in a span, and I include another field that is the node ID, NID. That's at the very bottom of your screen. Another more complicated rewrite that I've done in views And this particular one is for the website version of the e-newsletter. And so this is a taxonomy term that is the header for like the grouping of articles. And this particular header has commas, it has slash, and I can't use that as an anchor link. It's as an ID. It's just too ugly. So what I had to do in the view was in the curly brackets here, you see in the middle, the name of the field is Field Resource Review Section. That's the name of this field. And then in red, you have value pipe replace. And what that's doing there in the surrounding parentheses is it is stripping out and replacing empty spaces, commas, and that slash with hyphens. And so you see in the bottom in Code Inspector, the ID comes out nice and clean with hyphens. That is pretty much it. I am happy to kind of go into the website itself, and I'm going to share that now actually, and kind of throw it open for questions as well. Catherine, I can also, if people want to unmute themselves,
yeah,
we could do it that way as well.
I was just going to say, if any of our participants want to just unmute yourself and talk to Josh directly, that's fine.
But what I'm kind of showing you here is this is the website version of the e-newsletter, and we can bounce to every section. It's just a very, very long page. It's very, very academic, but this thing is actually pretty popular. And now the email version of it is actually protected. You can only see this if you log in. You might see the title, but that's it. And I have instructions here in the view header for the person that is going to paste it in constant contact. And then this is what it looks like. So when they go into Code Inspector, they're copying this element, and then they're going to paste it into constant contact. But again, here, Max, sorry. Twig variables. Row.nid. Are you talking about, for example, removing commas and let's see here. Max, I also have to warn you that I am not a developer.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
This is Daniel.
Oh, hey, this is Daniel Cawthorn. You may have seen his presentation on charts. Daniel and I work together all the time. Go ahead.
So, you know, in the Twig file, there's documentation at the top, and it will say which variable is available to be used in that Twig.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I think that's what he's getting to.
Let me share, see if I can maybe share a PHP storm here. No, you can go into presentation mode. This will be a little more easy to read. Okay, Max, so you're looking for things like this. Row.nid. One thing I did not do in that PowerPoint presentation is link out to the sources of where I found all this stuff, and I can modify the PowerPoint for that.
One thing that we've also done, Max, is using the JSON encode filter. And when you do that, in our case, you could see that NID was one of the elements in the object, so we could get to it by using the dot in this case. We also, I think it's in this file. Can you scroll over to the right, Josh?
Yeah, let me see if I can wrap this. There we go.
Yeah, so we have row.entity.label. So we saw that the row had the entity, but label is not something that was visible there, but we knew just from prior work that if you want to get the title of a node, you can use label on the entity. And so that's how we were able to get the value of the title of that node.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I don't remember ever seeing one cheat sheet for the list of all those. Usually it'd be on like Overstack or somewhere else that it would show up because somebody would have a problem and then somebody would suggest a solution. Thanks, Daniel.
One other thing to mention on that is using something like Twig tweak or, yeah, some just pasted.
Yeah, let me share. Thanks, Eden. I'm showing this right now. I definitely don't have this stuff memorized. Yeah, pretty much every site that we work on, Twig Tweak is one of those modules that we put up right away.
Josh, can you talk about using the view to grab specific sections versus trying to program the entire thing? So they could just copy the entire view and paste that into Constant Contact?
You mean why we did that versus, or why we didn't do that?
Yeah, why you have them copying from individual sections versus just using the entire view content.
Well, in Constant Contact, see if I can get in there real quick. 1 moment. I just want to log in first before I share this. And I'll go to the template. Here we go. I'm going to preview the template. And you can see how substantial this is. The original form of this, we actually did copy and paste in pretty much the entire guts of it. But there was a request to make each one of these headers an anchor link as well, and then to customize the introduction every time. Each one of these icons links back to the website version. specifically. So if I click on early childhood development here, it bounces you down to that section on the website. But again, I mean, you can do that if you want. To be honest, we went through a couple iterations of this, and I just came to the conclusion that it got too messy if they were going to copy and paste all that code at once. There's too much margin for error. But for smaller e-newsletters, it's definitely a lot more viable.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Anybody want to see anything else?